Okay, so this is our last day of notes for the unit, and we're going to talk about how to interpret a two-way table today, or one of the ways that we can do that. So, when you're dealing with a two-way table, the idea that we talked about yesterday is that you want to try to see if there's some type of correlation between the variables that you chose. Like, are they related in any way, or is it just maybe a coincidence, or is there anything that they have anything to do with each other? So, when you come out with your survey that you're going to ask for a two-way table, you need to consider, first of all, the variables that you need to have need to be categorical and non-numerical. So you shouldn't be asking people things where their response is a number. Um, and you want to make sure that like you don't ask anything like just off the wall random that has nothing to do with each other. So I think I have something here, an example. So I don't want to reiterate that, but um, let's look at this. So, interpreting the relationship of two variables. So, consider the table below, which represents data collected from a sample survey of males and females, where the respondents were asked whether they prefer hip hop or country music, and the results are shown below. We can see 15 males preferred hip hop. And 5 of them country, 45 females preferred hip hop, and 15 of them country. So, with this information, can we conclude that females prefer hip hop more than males? Why or why not? And what about country music? Well, if we look at our table, it looks like females prefer hip hop more than males and country music more than males. But look at how many females were part of this, right? So we had 60 females compared to 20 males that were part of uh, this group. So our two variables in the survey are gender and music genre, and we can see the count of females is higher and females with both categories, and that's because more females took the survey. So we want to know if there's a relationship between gender and music genre. In other words, can you predict the type of music someone listens to just because of their gender? Or think about like stereotypes. So if we just look at this table and said yes, females prefer hip hop more because there are 30 more females that chose hip hop than males, and females also prefer country because there are 10 more females that chose country than males. But we need to consider that there were 60 females in this survey compared to only 20 males. So concluding that females prefer these genres more would not necessarily be the case. If we asked another 40 males, it's possible that the responses could be the same, proportion wise. So how can we determine if there's a relationship between our variables? One way to perform this is called the chi-square test for independence. I've already had this calculation for you. This is going to be kind of the final component of your project. You just need to go on there and kind of type in your table and then interpret what this meaning is. All you have to do is type in your table into my Google Sheet on the calendar called chi-square template and make sure to delete any unused rows and interpret the results. Um, and then I tell you how to kind of interpret this. Look at the p-value interpretation if the p-value is greater than or less than 0.05. So we're going to do that real quick. I want you to log onto Canvas and test the following table and see if there's a relationship between genders and music genre. Then open up your spreadsheet from yesterday and with the preferred snack and plug in these values, and we'll see which one's higher. You may have to, depending on what your table size is, like this is a 2 by 2, we have 2 rows and 2 columns. You may have to keep opening that up and just using that as a template. So like if I were to bring up this, like go to my calendar, once again, it could be in a different date, not January 21st, but here's where the test is. I'm going to make a copy. And I want, like you need to delete any rows and columns that you're not using. So for instance, I'm going to just type this in exactly as that table looked like. There was a 15 here, a 5 here, a 15 here, and a 45 here. And anything that I'm not using, I need to delete. So I'm going to go up here to the top and I'm going to click delete column. I'm going to click delete column here and delete column here. Then I'm going to delete this row because I'm not using it. And if you have something else that you're doing that is bigger than this, like a 3 by 2 or something, then you can just reopen this page back up and make a copy and do this real quick. Delete row. And over here, you see how we have these hashtag REFs. Those need to be deleted as well. So delete this column, And notice our p-value says hashtag REF. That's because we have all these calculations going on. And now, we get this p-value of 1.000. And if we look at the interpretation, it says if p is less than 0.05, the variables appear to have a relationship. If it's greater than 0.05, it would appear that there's no relationship. And if we look at this example, there's not really a relationship. The proportions are the same. So we would say, based off of this p-value, that there would appear that there's no relationship between gender and the type of music someone listens to. So let's go back over here. Okay. So our p equals 1, which is greater than 0.5. So we would say there appears to be no relationship in gender and preferred music genres. This is the last kind of component that you're going to have when you start your project. Let's do a couple more examples. So suppose a rights group wants to determine whether profiling occurs at the airport security screening sites. The group collects data for 1,000 randomly selected passengers and classifies their names as foreign or not, and then checks to see whether they're fully searched. The data is as follows. This is also a 2x2, so we don't need to change anything. We can use the same table. So we were told that out of the people that had foreign surnames, 30 of them were searched, 69 were not. Out of the non-foreign surnames, 191 were searched and 710 were not. So let's go back to our table, and we're going to plug these in. So this, we don't have to reopen this because this is the same size table. And we get this number right here, 0.0382. So let's see if we can interpret that. Oops. I thought I had an interpretation on here. So how might I interpret something like this? Well, I mean, look, that number is less than 0.05. So it would appear that the variables may have some type of relationship. There may be something going on between what your last name is and whether or not you're being searched. It's not 100%. It's just saying there could be some type of relationship that could be looked at a little further. Is kind of what that's saying. Let's look at another one. I think this is my last one. So you're going to be coming up with kind of a sentence or statement like that at the end. Dr. Tom Bako, a sociology professor, asked the students whether they smoke cigarettes. The data is shown below. Can we suggest that there's a relationship between gender and whether a person smokes or not? So let's do the same thing here. We also have a 2x2. We have gender and then smoking, yes or no. So if we go back over here to my table, I'm going to plug in these values. I don't need to label anything. I'm just going to do 9, 133. I don't need to label the totals. I don't want to touch the total box because I have a formula in there. That's 12, and this is 71. Now everything will automatically calculate for me, and I'm looking at 0.0434. That is also less than 0.05, so it would appear that there may be some type of relationship between gender and whether or not you smoke cigarettes. All right, and then let's see. Okay, now let's go back over to the project overview. So what is your project overview? So your project is to create a 2-question survey in order to determine if there may be a possible relationship between the two variables. You will use Google Forms, and your questions should be categorical data only, and you need to provide multiple choice responses and no more than 4 multiple choice options. If you have 4 multiple choice options for one question, the other question should have 2 or 3 options. You need to have a minimum of 30 responses. So if you think about a two-way table like the smoking and gender, right, or the gender or the foreign surname, not foreign surname, and being searched and not, those are both 2 options, right? So part one is your data collection. It's worth 10 points. You're going to use Google Forms to create a 2-question survey with categorical data. You need a minimum of 30 responses. Use multiple choice responses. And this question you ask should be interesting to you and appropriate for a two-way table. In other words, don't ask something like, what's your favorite toothpaste and how many sisters do you have? Those have nothing to do with one another. The collected data needs to be imported into a Google Sheet. It does not have to be formatted. For your collected data. Part two is organizing your data on a two-way table. So you're going to create a formatted two-way table to organize your data like we did in my example. Your two-way table should have a title like mine does, and you need to hyperlink this title to go to your survey that you distributed. So just like you hyperlinked your survey to that shared Word doc, you need to do that to your title of your formatted table. Create a formatted side-by-side column chart like we did. Give the chart a title. This can be the same title that you gave your table. And that's part two. How many points was that worth? 30 points. And then part three, there's a lot more to this, which is why it's worth 60. This is the analyzing, summarizing, and interpreting your data. Some of this stuff we're going to be adding on to part two, like calculating the totals for your two-way table. That's really part two. I mean, I'm adding these so we can have something to actually analyze a little easier with the totals. Create another table that calculates your relative frequencies for each category. That's like what we just got done doing, I think yesterday, to compare the overall totals. Format this table using percents and give it a title. Create a formatted side-by-side column chart to create a visual of the distribution among variables. So that's what we got done doing, I think, today already. Then you need to create a text box by selecting Insert Drawing Text Box and respond to the following. Were there any trends or patterns that you observed, or where there certain data values occur together more frequently? Identify any extreme differences between both variables, and then what was the highest and lowest percentages, and what do they represent for your data? What was the highest and lowest bars, and what do they represent for your data? They should be the same, I would imagine, as the percentages. And then go to the Canvas calendar, type in the data to the chi-square template, and interpret the results based on the p-value. Write your interpretation in the same text box. And this, so the same text box you've been using. So this is still part three. And then finally, this last part is kind of a reflection. In the same text box, answer this following questions. Why did you choose these questions? What is something you learned from this project? And if you can go back and conduct another survey, what might you ask? So you're free to get started on your project. Make sure you pay attention to the due date. Have fun. Good luck.